what you do with the people standing around watching. But there are at least 5 suspects charged in connection with the violent Cincinnati brawl that left 2 people seriously injured on Saturday night. The Trump administration is suggesting this should be treated as a hate crime investigation. And while it remains unclear what led to the attack exactly, it is very clear about how violent it got. One of the most disturbing parts of the story is how many people were just standing around watching. Well, clearly not just watching, because we have so much video of it. They were on their phones. One person called 911. Now, here's a warning. Some of what you'll see obviously is disturbing, maybe even graphic. So now let's go to Brian Yennis, who's in the studio to take us through all of this. Brian, this video went viral, and parts of it are really hard to watch.
Yeah, absolutely very difficult to watch, Harris. The charges against the 5 suspects are sealed, and we don't even know yet how many, if any, have been arrested. Cincinnati's police chief says we can anticipate, though, more charges against more people. Now, look, the video shows a white man being punched and kicked by a group of black people in downtown Cincinnati on Saturday at 3 a.m. The police have not said how or why this started. The police chief says alcohol played a significant role, and they've characterized it as a sudden dispute following a verbal altercation. Now, in the brawl, a woman appearing to try to protect the man is sucker punched by another man, appearing to be knocked unconscious. Cincinnati's police chief says 100 people watched or were involved, yet only one person called 911.
I think what they should be angry about is nobody called the police. That is unacceptable, to not call the police when you view this. Traffic was horrendous. People saw this. They were fighting in front of traffic. Why didn't somebody call us?
Vice President J.D. Vance spoke about this yesterday while in Ohio. Listen.
What I saw is a mob of lawless thugs beating up on an innocent person, and it's disgusting. And I hope every single one of those people who engage in violence is prosecuted to the full extent of the law. When you have a grown man who sucker punches a middle-aged woman, that person ought to go to jail for a very long time.
The Trump administration's Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, suggested hate crime charges could be filed. Quote, our federal hate crime laws apply to all Americans. We at Civil Rights will monitor closely how local authorities handle this attack. Now, Harris, Cincinnati Police Chief, warned yesterday the social media video does not depict the entire incident. One video, for instance, we've seen shows other people that perhaps were being beaten down as well, not just the one man. And I will also point out that there has been criticism from Republican Senator Bernie Moreno against the mayor, Purval, of Cincinnati for waiting, what he says, 2 days to release a statement. And he says that he had not contacted any of the victims as of yesterday when that statement came out.
Well, look, it doesn't surprise me that we're going to see the proceeds of more video in all of this. We should see a lot. People were standing around with their cell phones taking pictures and videos instead of calling for help. I understood it took 6 minutes for anybody to get there, and there was no ambulance in the area. I mean, that woman on the ground, that's a lot. Brian, thank you.
Of course.
Emily, I know that they will bring in more evidence in all of this, but as you look at this is a crime scene.
Yes. First of all, I would never use words like fight or brawl. I would use words like attack, assault. I would charge this, first of all, with attempted murder, because we've seen what one-punch murders can be. This was horrifying. This deserves no place in society. Ohio State has complicit laws, so if you take part in a group beating, then everyone is responsible and on the hook for those that you see on those myriad cameras recording this. So I certainly would charge everyone with the attempted murder. I would charge them with felonious assault. I would charge with them everything under the book. And Harmeet Dillon is absolutely right that if the state doesn't get it right, and I'm not holding my breath, then step in with hate charges at the federal level. This was nauseating to watch. And the amount of tiptoeing around that we have seen from anyone but the vice president and representatives of the federal authorities is so disheartening to boot. So you're telling me it was a fight when you see 100 people, 100 black people beating up 2 white people, and you're not, what if this was 100 white people beating up 2 Asian people?
Well, why she pick Asians? Why didn't she say 100 white people beating up 1 black person? Because that happens all the time. And it ain't 100 people. That's an exaggeration on my part and on her part. It was several black people beating the shit out of a white man. And there has been occasions in this country over our existence here that mobs of angry white people have beat one black person up, lynched them, arrested them, dismembered them, took them apart, took pictures of it, put the pictures that they took in their Bible and kept them as keepsakes. You know, I mean, she going a little off the deep end with the Asian. I don't even know why she brought the Asians into it. This is a black-white one right here. This is about the perfect opportunity for us to open up the laboratory and look at this shit and see if everybody can really agree on what we all just saw there. I saw a violent-ass fight. People getting the shit beat out of them. I didn't look at it as black and white until I looked at this podcast. I actually saw it on another program, and then I saw this one. I said, oh, yeah, this one here is my shit right here. They talking the way an upset person who feels like they've been slighted would talk. They feel that whatever we have in this country, whatever rights, whatever anger, whatever frustration, it ain't justified and it ain't tolerated. And no matter how we feel, we have to just suck it up and get it. I personally believe, based on what I saw, that somebody called somebody the N-word. And I might be wrong. They might have said something else derogatory, and it might have not been the N-word. But that looked like some. When black people lose it, it's to the level of going to court and being able to plead temporary insanity. Depending on where you're at and what you're doing, and if alcohol, like they said, was involved, if somebody call you the N-word, it can be very unsettling, and it can be very unfortunate for the person who did it, because they might just feel like they hurled an insult at you, and everybody looking would say, he just called him the N-word. Why do you have to do all that? You know, that's one thing that we need to learn in our society, is that you don't get to do something to somebody and then pick what their response is. I'm sorry. You don't get to pick what their response is, how high, how low they go, or if they respond at all. You don't. The only part you have in that entire scenario is starting it. And then whatever comes back at you, if nothing, then that's how that situation went. But if it comes back like this, you might be like, whoa, I don't think, and you might not think that calling a black person the N-word is that harmful or that hurtful. You don't know what it awakens and what it brings out in us in a whole lot of situations. And if alcohol, like I said, was involved, that's like the person on the ground, the guy getting beat up, the woman who got socked. She's lucky she just got socked and that people didn't jump on her, because it was rage going on out there. And I know for a fact that it's very unlikely for any group of people, more likely for a group of white people than black people, to just look at a person of another race and just attack them. We just tend not to do that because over the years we've been conditioned not to do that. We know what the repercussions are of that kind of behavior. So whenever we display that kind of shit, somebody uncross the line, and we don't care at that point because you're not being rational. You've snapped, you've triggered, you pissed, and it's easy for her to sit back and say, well, what if a bunch of angry white people jumped on Asian? What an Asian got to do with this? What if a bunch of angry white people jumped on a black guy? Or what if a group of angry cops jumped on a black guy? They just did the other day. They just beat the shit out of that black dude, punched him through the window and all of that. And we act like we forgot? Ain't nobody, a police officer beating up a civilian like that. And we think because they're police officers, and they may have done the wrong thing, but it's okay because they're police officers. It was controlled. It wasn't out of control. People in the society can't do that, though. Only the police can beat the shit out of people in America. But in society, no, we can't do that. We have to treat ourselves like we are more civilized than that. In words only. Because when the times come and have come and will come again, when white guys get violent toward black people while they're in their churches praying, Do you think that it's worse to call a black person, and this is my own assumption because I just don't see angry black groups of black people jumping on white people unless it's a reason, and the reason might not, in most people's eyes, meet that ass whooping. You'd be like, nah, they didn't have to do all that, but you don't know what you triggered in that person. I might be able to walk up to your average white person and say something to them that might touch them so deeply, and they might get so enraged that they might respond in a way they might be surprised, like, God damn, I can't believe I socked that guy in the face like that, but he really touched me. You know, you start shaking and you don't know what to do next. That it could have been one of those moments, and a little more investigation should have happened before they start calling it, you know, like the racial thing that it is, and especially when we are the perpetrator. How can we have so much power to discriminate and to be racially mad at everybody and lashing out and making clear that hate crimes apply to everybody? You know, they're letting us, when they say that statement, they're saying, because we have the most hate crimes inflicted upon us in the country. You can not dispute that. There's no other racial group in the United States other than black people, us, who get that kind of treatment on that level and that scale. And this lady is upset because it's like, oh, hell no. The land that they own, the wealth that they will always be regulated, will always be controlled by that ruling class. If we were released from slavery and allowed to accumulate the kind of wealth that white people have, and maybe even flipped it to where we have the upper hand economically in this country, there would have been another civil war before that happened. This country wasn't made for us to be the ruling class, to be equal to the ruling class, or anything even close to that. And the reason I say that so confidently is because it isn't. This country could be whatever it wants to be. And right now, this country is what it wants to be. And when there are outbursts like this that can't be controlled because so much is controlled, look at the response.
Well, I think it would be pretty clear. There is no place for this in our civilized society, and the fact that Cincinnati downtown in that area was bare and devoid of law enforcement, that is on the shoulders of that police chief, Terry, and there is so much more accountability to be had. That woman was a single mother who was just attending a birthday party. Now she's fighting for her life to the cheers of those 100+ people, and now we're going to have to pay for their 3 square meals a day, by the way, in prison. Going on. That's what they're going to get. They're going to enjoy the royal treatment in prison. So no matter how you look at this.
And I don't know why a lot of people think that when folks go to prison, they're getting the royal treatment. They feel like you're living free. You got a 3 hots in a cot. You got a roof over your head. You're not exposed to the elements. You know what I mean? Why would anybody be that cruel that they would speak in those terms when they're talking about another group of people? But if they were talking about their self, there's no way you would think that being locked up in prison is the royal treatment, or you would even play around like that. But that's what they believe. At least they didn't kill him. They just gave him life, 400 years and 300 years and all these years. If you had about years that black people have gotten convicted and charged with, which is very unfortunate, and not to disrespect those blacks who didn't get sentenced long years because they just got murdered. They didn't get the opportunity to be sentenced or judged. Imagine how many times we've been to prison and had our fate determined by a group of people who aren't even our peers, a group of your peers. That's terrible.
There's going to be zero accountability for those monsters.
Well, unless they get a soft on crime policy deal. I mean, that's what
And that's another thing. I'm going to have to say this shit. Whenever there's a group of black people, a black person, black anything, that does something that crosses the line, becomes controversial, people want to discuss it and talk about it, they start using words that they want to use anyway. Monsters. She already came out in the beginning of her part, not Horace Faulkner, but the other lady. She came out in the beginning with the black-white and then making comparisons and drawing. If it was us against Asians, well, Why would a bunch of white people be jumping on an Asian? I mean, I can see why a bunch of black people would jump on a white person. I can see it, unfortunately. I mean, sometimes they go too far. Sometimes they really forget that we are human beings and we have emotions and feelings and we snap and we get violent just like they do. There's no difference. But more violence is inflicted upon us. No, that black kid on the side of the road in Jacksonville just got to break your heart to see him beaten. And so what if that was your kid and you saw the video of your kid, your kid being talked to and treated, especially after he yelled out, hey, can you get a supervisor out here? If you're a citizen and you cannot tell a police officer who you think might be going a little too far or not in his right mind to say, hey, stop. You as a citizen should have control as long as you're not posing an imminent or immediate threat to the police to say stop. Get your supervisor out here. That's not an unreasonable request. They don't do it because they don't have to do it for us. You let a body cam pop up of a middle-aged white lady, and it could be as calm as a Sunday evening on the porch after eating, and they will not disobey that lady's request. They will honor it. They will call their supervisor out. Well, ma'am, I'm sorry. What is the problem? Just get the supervisor out here. I need to talk to him. You guys are upsetting me. Ain't no glass gonna be broken. Ain't no punch to the head coming. And acts of violence are unfortunate, and nobody can tell you more about them than us. We know. We seen it. When I was a little kid, I was seeing water hoses turned on groups of nonviolent blacks and dogs being turned on them. You imagine being bitten by a dog when you're not even doing anything? And I saw this on TV. I didn't see this in person or anything, but to see those things, to see how adults during that time when I was a child acted. And I felt more like black people. I remember my parents walking down the street or going places. They would see other black people and they would always speak, acknowledge each other. And now I don't feel that in our community. I feel like it's our community has been taken over because the bulk of us are in a particular place and not with a whole lot of hope or direction. When we have our black elites who have money and power and a voice to a degree, and then we have the other blacks who just get into politics, get into government, get into business. They want power, they want control, and as long as they have the insides to prosper and elevate themselves without having a strong connection to their community and doing anything for that big group of black people at the bottom there, it's almost like a really good marketing technique for the United States to be so deeply and angrily racist, such a large group of people, but have the ambassadors from that race pop up in rap and movies and sports and make the world have a different feeling and a different look at the blacks in America. And then it's just kind of sick when you think about it, because it's like just a marketing tool, a marketing technique. And it doesn't matter how the world feels or any of that shit. We need to turn it around where we hold our ambassadors accountable, where we no longer let them get out there and speak for us and be buffoonish and make money off of the fact that they have a lock on that culture, a lock on that group that is one of the most valuable groups of people in the United States. They just have unrealized power, unrealized potential, and definitely unrealized opportunities. And as soon as we're able to think our way out of this and it's going to have to be our own way of doing it, because they're not going to open any doors. They're not going to allow us any more of the country than we already have. And that's very, very small in comparison to other groups who have come into this country subsequent to us already being here. We need to stand our ground, and we need to not let people demonize us when uninvestigated events happen. And when the police is saying, hey, why didn't they call us? Why didn't they call us out there? Why? So you could get violent toward those blacks? That's why what you were saying. You weren't saying so we could get out there and put an end to this or stop this. You wanted to be called out there so you could beat the shit out of them black people who was beating the shit out of that white guy. So you could get out there and even the score. It's like, damn, what a violent fucking country. And the police are like, why weren't we called? Shit, it was mostly black people standing around. That's why your ass wasn't called. And I bet you the person who called was white. The black people might have knew the deal. They might have knew why that dude was getting beat down. People get beat down in the United States, and sometimes it's justifiable. It's that kind of shit that happened in the streets. You get beat down, you get them, go home and you know, put some ice on that shit and realize don't do that shit no more, whatever it is you did. Don't go to that club. Don't fuck with them people. Don't say what you said, if that's what it is. Now, I would be doing you guys an injustice if I didn't show you the other side of that. It could very well be this guy went out. He liked black music. He was in the club scene in the area where they're frequented by a lot of blacks, and these angry blacks saw that white guy and was like, as soon as he go outside, we're going to beat his ass. And he went outside, and 100 of them jumped on him. That's very unlikely. It almost doesn't ever happen like that, but let's say that happened. Then everything that lady said is justified. But that didn't happen. And unfortunately, she's speaking out of raw emotion. Triggered. Kind of like those guys probably were. I'm black. I ain't never went nowhere, and none of my homies, none of my friends, from the time I was young up to old, being in small groups of black men, even angry ones sometimes. And they never say, you know what? Man, it's boring. We ain't got nothing to do tonight. Let's go find some white dude and beat him up. Never, ever happened. Not none of my groups, none of my, you brothers, what? Y'all go out and beat up white people when y'all bored? Is that what we do now? Hell nah. It needs to be investigated, and we're going to have to follow this one up. Let's call this part 1, because we're going to do a part 2 on this one for sure, because it's going to be some more to this one, and then we'll get to have a more balanced commentary. But right now, let's get back to Horace Faulkner.
Where is the justice? Can it be meted out the way Emily said? And if the feds get involved, I totally get that. Pierce.
Yeah, sickening on so many levels. We don't know the whole story. But what we do know is the police chief went out, and I saw an extraordinary press conference she gave where she tried to be blaming social media. That was the real problem. The problem wasn't this violent brawl in which so many people rounded on this guy. I don't really care how it started. Whatever it started, it ended with a horrific act of mob violence. Then you have a...
It doesn't matter how it started. It doesn't matter how. Nobody can say, oh, it doesn't matter how it started. Like if this guy was just walking out of a coffee shop and got pummeled, or if this guy walked out of the coffee shop and said, N-words, real loud and got pummeled. Those are two different scenarios. Even though the end result was the same, you can't light fires and then act like, you know what, if you guys hadn't got involved, it would have been just a little fire. But, you know, it's okay for him to say that to these people. Is what would be the punishment? Maybe that was the punishment. Maybe if those people had not physically beaten that man down, and in their minds, right or wrong, they felt justified. But the people standing around must have known more than any of us, because they weren't helping. I know that people don't allow folks to just be like, hey, man, why did they jump on that dude like that? I've been places and seen people of other races getting done wrong, and you know it ain't the shit, and you be like, nah, man, y'all knock that shit off. What's going on? Y'all tripping. You know, sometimes it be our younger folks, or sometimes when I was younger, it'd be people my age and doing that. I'd be like, nah, man, I'm trying to stand up and do the right thing in those type of instances. But whenever I was under the impression that a white person threw a bottle, threw out a racial, a derogatory racial term, I don't get involved in that. I've never ever tried to break up a fight when the person attacking is in a good percentage of the population's mind justified, even though some people would say, no matter what they do, no matter what, like, you know, you walking down the street with your old mom and some white guy come up and call her the N-word and slap her. Pow! And you beat him like that. Would they feel any different? Would they say, well, he shouldn't have slapped his mom? Would they say, no, I don't care what he did. You shouldn't have been that violent toward him. I mean, is that how it goes? I don't know. We need to get our shit together. I know that basically, what's his name here? Piers. This dude is in not so many words, not real favorable to black people. I don't never see him come out in support of us. He always got something to say that sounds, and he's from the UK, but you would think he's from the United States because they're in lockstep. But their black people are a little different than us, I think. I don't know. It just from here, it looks like it. Hearing people hailing the queen and crying when she dies and all of that, when you understand the true history of all of that royal family over there, and to see that people break down crying. Anyway, the Piers, he a weirdo, but he's the kind of people that we need on TV. He's the kind of people that need to keep speaking this stuff so that it can be interpreted and viewed properly. And we can see where these people stand and quit getting caught up in the Democrats and the Republicans' little spats, because that's all they are. No matter who wins the White House, we lose. And it's always been that way consistently. When has someone won the White House and we really won? Not felt like we won, really won. Never.
A woman punched unconscious could have died, like you said. But the real problem is social media, apparently, amplifying the wrong narrative about this. No, we know what we saw. And whatever built up to the moment, we then saw a horrific mass number of people rounding on one guy and a woman knocked cold. And we also saw so many phones out. You know, what has happened to our society? We have this in the UK as well. When the first thought of people, when they see a woman knocked unconscious, who may be dead, is to take a phone out and record it on their phone and then post it on their social media for likes. That is as sickening as almost any other part of this. None of them, apart from one person, call for help. One person with a woman who might be dead on the ground.
Well, and it's still not clear yet, Cheryl, if the one person was in the bank of cars that was being pushed back, the traffic that couldn't come through because this mob was blocking the way for those cars. So there were people inside those vehicles who were also witnessing this.
Yeah, and did nothing except film, to your point. You know, and that police chief coming out and saying this is social media journalism, and she was pointing her finger at the reporters in the room, I thought was so disrespectful. And by the way, this police chief, it was just recently sued this year by 4 lieutenants in her own department for discrimination. There are 4 white lieutenants that are all suing her because they say that she has done nothing but promote minorities and women ahead of them, and they're actually taking her to court.
These white men in the United States are being discriminated against at record levels. They just can't take it. They have no idea how come they're not getting all the promotions and all the accolades, and that they have to share that with black, and probably who they were talking about, black officers and probably some Hispanic officers and women. And the women can be white, and these motherfuckers turn on them. It could be their girlfriends and their wives. They wanted all the money. They want to be running it like that. And if they're not the biggest subject of law enforcement's sights, if they don't hone in on white men the most, then white men should get out of law enforcement for the most part. There's no place for them there. It really isn't. The people who are the subject of the police, the target of the police, that race, those groups should be predominantly the biggest part of our law enforcement in this country, because they would be the most compassionate. They would be the most apt to have an understanding of what they're dealing with in these situations. And police departments in the United States should just put people in their communities. In a Middle Eastern community, recruit as hard as you can to get you some Middle Eastern police officers, or definitely 80% of that, and the other ones will fall in line. Black communities, same thing. Hispanic communities. Why must we be policed by white people so in such high numbers? And what would make 4 lieutenants who are white? That's just a statement. That's one of those, we're being discriminated against. We got to stand our ground, trying to act like you what it is in some ways they have lost ground. They have to have lost ground. They had everything. They have to relinquish something, some things, some positions of power in this country. And when they get to work alongside a guy who they don't like, and then when the time comes to compete against him, or somebody they like competing against him for a promotion, and that African American gets that promotion, they go sue. Or maybe it happened a few times. But can you imagine the amount of times when that happened to us and we didn't sue, and we couldn't sue, and it wasn't even on our mind to sue. We just accepted that defeat, took that L, and figured that's just the way things go, because that is the way things go. That has been the way things go. That's why we need to stop going with the flow, because we're at the gap is getting wider. It's not closing. And it's not helping us at all to continue to have outbursts like this, instead of taking that anger. And I know it's hard. And it's things like this that's going to happen. I can't tell nobody, once you're triggered, hey, get untriggered, calm yourself. I mean, I don't know. I just get out of people's way when it's that type of party, because I try not to partake. I try to be as level-headed and as rational as I can be. And in most cases, that means not going places, and rather than go somewhere and knowing that it's a potential, depending on where it is, the event, the place, the party, you'd be like, nah, I'm good, because it's a potential that might not be for me. And I have to step back before I'm triggered. I have to step back before I hear something that I can't come back from. And make a decision, and hopefully it's the best. I mean, I just have to do that. And you can die in a day, being in the wrong situation. What if that police lady, the white police lady, had gotten her wish and 80 calls flooded in, and they were all frantic and upset and describing an angry mob of blacks beating up a white guy? Can you imagine what it would have looked like when that response showed up, when the police presence was filtering in? Do you imagine what that would have looked like? I would have hated to be any part of that angry blood, because they've already drew a picture in their head of what they were about to encounter, and that would have been really ugly. Not that beat down of the white guy and knocking out the white girl. The white girl, unfortunately, got hit and harmed pretty bad there, but ladies, you got to use your common sense. Don't get in the middle of men fights. Don't get in men's face. And especially angry ones who've been triggered over something. They probably think that you're with him, or you're saying what he said, and you're just there trying to stop the violence. But if you're a lady and you see a scene like that, you're not equipped the best thing you probably could do is call the police, and what's going to happen then. But I don't know, not physically get in the way, not physically stand within a arm's reach where you can be punched. I mean, I know you see that, you feel for him, but she's laying on the ground next to him now. The best thing is to think that stuff out. And this show is being really racist in this one, because we all know that we don't know the complete story yet. So it's going to be a part 2. But the biggest part is their response. Their response is as if they don't care. And that speaks volumes.
Over it.
Well, the humanity aspect, obviously, only one person in 100 called the police. What does that tell you about humanity today? But beyond that, there's been a lot of frustration saying, online at least, of saying that if the races were reversed, the coverage that this would get, the immediacy of the coverage that it would get, it would be enormous. And there's statistics to back that up. The Washington Free Beacon did an examination both pre-George Floyd and post-George Floyd, and looked at 1,100 articles from 6 major publications and found that post-George Floyd, the media was much more likely at a much significant amount to report on white offenders than they were on black offenders, and naming the race. And so I do think there's documented evidence to prove that a lot of those dynamics have changed post George Floyd. But yeah, to see what we saw, does it even?
It don't matter if they say the race or not. I don't believe that shit. I know every time it's a black person who is the perpetrator of a crime, we know that shit immediately. But for argument's sake, let's say she is telling the truth. They specifically hone in on the race when it's a white person. That don't even sound right. That shit sounded weird coming out of my mouth, but okay. Now, let's say that shit happens. But it don't. I have to say that again. But what is she saying? White people go to prison more than black people? White people are sentenced higher than black people? What is the reason that she said that? So they hone in on race, and they say the white cat burglars and white murderers and white gangbangers and white crack dealers. All these times they put the white people's race at the front of the crime. They let you know as a white person, those lawless white people, is what she's saying. And so what do they get as a result of being put out front? Does it harm them? Does their brand go down? They don't get more time. So what's the big deal for her saying that? It's trying to let us know that white people are being picked on. And the slither of this country that we have been given, allowed to occupy, is too much. They want some of that shit back. That's what she's saying. Whatever gain, if you can chart it, that we've made, they want it back. It ain't enough. We're making them uncomfortable.
A matter of the how and why of how it started?
Well, it does if we want to keep it from happening again, because Cincinnati seems a bit out of control. And to Emily's point, there were no cops around that could stop it right away. And then there were no emergency services for 6 minutes. I mean, that woman was out. That's a lot.
Where are social police officers? In other words, the public, who you could rely on in the good old days.
Yeah, these are the good old days. They don't even realize it. They've been the good old goddamn days. The good old days. What does that mean? The days when they could do stuff to us and not have no accountability, no repercussions, nothing, nobody looking over their shoulder. The person looking over their shoulder was helping them. What is the good old days? That's fucked up. They're good back in the good old days. Yeah, this wouldn't have happened. Angry mob. That's when they could say the N-word and black people would be like, triggered, but you wasn't that goddamn triggered. You'd be like, all right. And when they did get triggered and respond, they usually lost their life. That's unfortunate, but the good old days, that pisses me off when I hear that shit. What do you mean the good old days?
To see a scene like that and rush to that woman's help.
Right thing.
What's happened to social police work?
Daniel Penny. Yeah, Daniel Penny.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
and then you find yourself in a criminal court facing murder charges.
Or even what they did at the Ferguson effect for police officers. I mean, police officers have even been fearful to do their jobs post-Ferguson.
Yeah.
Post-Ferguson, the police have been afraid to do their jobs. And they've beaten the shit out of people left and right, especially our people, and they're afraid to do their jobs. That's bullshit. They want more leeway. They want more freedom to do their job the way they want to do it. They don't want to be scrutinized or questioned in any way. Well, why did you beat the shit out of that black guy in the alley like that? Because I was afraid for my life. And they were like, oh, okay. That's what they want. The police officers want to be able to come out and take their frustrations out on the black community. And can you believe it? And for us not to whine and cry about it and just accept it and let police continue to flood our cities and be dressed dressed just like the ICE agents. They look like they out for battle and war too. They don't look no different. Frequent in our communities, you see police cars driving around and you know you're in a bad area because there's nothing you can do about it. They just policing you. That's their job. Keep an eye on you, making sure everything's good with you, but letting the illegal immigrant roam freely in the country because they got jobs. Leave them alone. It's pretty fucked up. And I cannot justify anybody, or any encouraging violence or trying to condone it or back it up. But I do, in my best effort, try to understand it and accept it for what it is. Just like we accepted it for what it was all these decades leading up to this. And all the time that we've been on the receiving end of the ass whooping and been able to justify it to a point of where we had to figure out a way to get it together and move on. We need to figure out how to get it together and move on from this, but we need to start getting it together and moving on with a plan to do better and not a plan to one up each other or try to, because it looks like we're equal when you see a mob of angry black people out there beating up, taking their frustrations out on a poor white guy and sucker punching. It just looks like a bunch of lawless black people in the United States, and white people are scared to go out at night because if they do, angry mobs of black people go, hey, there's one, let's go get them. And they run over and jump them. It's like, that's some bullshit. These are isolated incidents that need to be investigated so we can have more clarity on why this shit happened and not let people after this kind of stuff let their frustrations out. These media pundits get to sit around and take jabs at black people and not be scrutinized so hard for it because everybody saw that beatdown video first. So it gives you a little leeway to start expressing about 4 lieutenants who are suing because they're being discriminated against. They're white lieutenants and they're discriminated against. Maybe coming up the ladder, maybe they were bad street cops. Maybe they were bad detectives. Maybe they planted evidence on people and the police who really want to do better are like, nah, don't promote him. It's a motherfucking damn shame we didn't fire his ass, but since he got a lot of support from the union and whoever the hell he do, leave him alone. But he ain't promoting. And if you're in a position to make those decisions and then as a result of that, they discriminate. Well, why are you discriminating against these white police officers? They're obviously better cops than these black ones. So why didn't they get the promotion? Why didn't they get the job? Is it unbelievable to think that maybe they found a better candidate in another race? Is that possible? Is it possible that somebody who made that decision is trying to change the way policing goes and they're doing their part? It may be in a white police officer's eyes looked at as discrimination, but it might be looked at a different way by the person who's making that decision. He might be looking at it as altering the way things have been being done and getting rid of the white officers in positions of power and trying to elevate some other races and giving them an opportunity to have a hand in the policing, even though we know the policing in this country comes from the top. You can have 100 million black cops. If their ideas and their policing and the laws that they're enforcing are being handed down from white people, that's what we'll be dealing with. We need to be at the top making some demands and some controls in our communities. We have no power in our own fucking communities. We're walking around with the police like they're at Lion Country Safari. They got the windows up and they're driving through real slow and they're looking up and down the street for one of those wild animals that we just call black people that they can take down. They're just ready at all times. That's not what our life is supposed to be like.
Rahm Emanuel said that, Democrat Rahm Emanuel.
But this was this was gleeful, wasn't it? This was gleeful recording. We're enjoying this. Look at this.
Correct.
Give me a like.
The worst of us.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily.
And at the end, right before y'all might have not caught that, Horace Faulkner said, the worst of us. Does she mean the worst of the society, the worst of the United States? Or is she making some kind of a admittance of us, meaning black people. Who fucking knows where they get people like that? You know what I mean? Well, she's probably not a bad person, but the people who are controlling her are bad people. They have her echoing this bullshit that is obviously not genuinely hers. However, she probably argue you down that it is, but it isn't. Nobody in the world could be that, just at the most basic level, against their own race. Really against their own race. And this ain't got nothing to do with politics. Just really against their own race. Doing things, saying things, propaganda to make that particular situation out there look more racial than it really was. Now, if the N-word was yelled, that's it right there. That's a racial incident that's about to go down. If there were police present at the onset and they heard someone hurl that word across the crowd, N-word, just, and you'd be like, whoa, everybody hear it, and it just freezes the crowd. A police officer would probably draw his firearm. He'd be like ready, aiming it at the black people, though. That's the part that kills me, is that a person, who may be white in this country could yell the N-word out, but the gun is aimed our way. Hey, you guys get back. Don't you touch him. You're like, what the fuck? I know. That's been the way policing is done in this country. You come home, find a burglar in your house, maybe a couple of people who aren't black broke into your home. And by the time the police get there, you got them standing on the front porch, with a gun aimed at them, with your flashlight aimed down at the ground, and you're aiming a gun at them, basically waiting for the police to come and get these people who broke into your home. And it's happened more than a few times. The police come up and they either shoot or apprehend the homeowner because he's black holding a fucking gun, aiming at somebody of another race. They're like, hey, you're going to break in somebody's house and then hold the occupants of the home at bay on the porch until the police come get you. It's fucked up. But that's what we're dealing with here, folks. There will be a part 2 to this one. We got to go deeper on this one for sure. I'm going to try to get involved. I seen some stuff coming out when I was making this video, and it's kind of repetitive. So I'm going to wait until we get some new information. I really want to try to get to the crux of this and find out what made this start in the beginning. If it was someone hurled the N-word, it doesn't make it any better or any worse. It's just what it is. And it's something that I wish we could get past in this country, but it's a lot of frustration. And we're all mad and angry and sometimes don't know which direction to go. And we have these outbursts because we really feel like we lost the election. We feel like we are, everything is magnified now that Donald Trump is in office. And remember, when Biden was in office, things were just as bad for us. It's not gotten any better. Don't let anyone tell you that it has. Allowing millions and millions of illegal immigrants to flood into the country doesn't help black people. And if you argue that it doesn't hurt black people, then okay, let's just call it a wash. Let's call it par for the course, which it ain't. But let's accept that. How does it help you, though? How does that help you? We need things that are going to help us, not par for the course shit no more. And that ain't par for the course, by the way. You can fight so hard to get those people into the country that you can be extinguishing your own existence and your own opportunities. And that's a fact. Let them fight their fight, and let's, give them an attaboy and everything. But we got our own fight. We got a lot of shit to do. Be sitting around acting like we are in a position with people openly getting on television and saying shit like this about us. Just that confident that it will be accepted and supported and echoed. And with that, folks, like, comment, share, and please subscribe. And we'll see you on the next Black Popcorn.